Welcome to our casting of Get Assigned. I'm Chief Master Sergeant Dan Connor, your Command Senior Enlisted Leader, Oregon. This podcast is an effort to provide our Oregon National Guard service members with a sign from me in the Adjutant General's office before you step into the metaphoric batter's box. I plan to discuss with you the pressing issues that are upon our enlisted service, as well as my leadership perspective. I'll also conduct some interviews with our great citizen soldiers and airmen to help gain insight and share best practices. So turn up your listening device and join me for what I hope is an educational and valuable few minutes. Often, like many of you, I try to exercise leadership traits that I know are important to our success. I look for techniques that might help emphasize these traits and make them more effective. I think approachability is an important trait. So what can I do to demonstrate my approachability? The open door policy is a technique that's widely used by leaders. The intentions are noble. As good leaders, we all strive to create and foster a culture of openness, trust, collaboration, communication, and respect. To do this, we as leaders must be approachable, regardless of our individual positions within the chain of command. Our tag coined the phrase, "Every soldier, every airman a leader." This, in part, is to say that we all have input, and it's to be expected. To ensure we are displaying and taking action to create and foster this environment, we could use the open door policy. But this policy needs to be used with caution and balance. An open door policy can create the opposite desired culture. Subordinates who overuse the privilege may become overly dependent on management to make decisions and solve problems. And this severely limits opportunities for these individuals to develop on their own. This could also create an optic of favoritism. Another pitfall to a poorly balanced or undisciplined open door policy is that it has a tendency to degrade the chain of command. When subordinates feel entitled to bypass the chain of command, they create distance between themselves and the leaders with whom they should be working closest with. This also erodes the leader's ability to appropriately delegate and direct. It can sometimes become a productivity problem as well when limits aren't placed on what this open door policy should be used for. There needs to be clearly defined boundaries. Although building relationships with coworkers and subordinates is very important, a leader needs to exercise discipline and appropriately limit non-work-related discussion. Like I stated earlier, balance. Don't allow the blurring of these boundaries. So with all the possible problems that come with an open door policy, I'm not suggesting you slam the doors. Don't turn away unscheduled one-on-one meetings that may include non-work-related conversations. Don't become distant and detached. Instead, set some ground rules and be disciplined. I read an article recently written by Karen Batzel. She's the CEO of Battle Axe Consulting. She's also a 30-year veteran of the U.S. Navy. She wrote that she had a half-open door policy. It meant that you could visit her office unscheduled if the meeting met 3 conditions. First, when the traditional chain of command is not working the way you know it's supposed to work. Second, when you think something is unsafe, illegal, or in her words, un-American is going on. And lastly, you understand the consequences of misusing or trivializing the privilege. Whatever conditions or limits you choose to set, remember the goal is to demonstrate approachability without degrading production, development, or the value of our chain of command. As good followers and subordinates, we also have a responsibility to the success of an open door policy. We all need to be very aware of the pitfalls and be respectful of any conditions or limits. Bottom line here is that if you choose to have an open door policy, do it with balance. Be disciplined and create limits. If you choose to use an open door policy, do it appropriately and with respect. And with that, I'll close the book on this episode of Get Assigned. In closing, I'd like to thank the Oregon National Guard Public Affairs Office and Sergeant First Class Holden for producing this podcast. Never forget, every soldier, every airman, a leader. This is Chief Connor signing off.